Hello, 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 and welcome to the Antiracist Enneagram podcast with Jessica Denise Dixon, where we look at life and healing at the intersections of the Enneagram, anti-racism, and embodiment for personal and collective liberation. Let's go.
Not trying to get by.
Trying to get by.
I'm trying to get free.
Trying to get free.
Well, welcome to the intro episode of this podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you. My name is Jessica Denise Dixon. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I reside on the unceded land of the Kumeyaay Nation in what is colonially known as San Diego, California. I hail from America's High Five, Michigan, the land of the indigenous Anishinaabe and Wyandot peoples. I grew up in a small town called Inkster, which has been at the time, it was a hub for Black people who worked in factories because many couldn't live other places because of structural racism that outlawed living in nearby towns. I should also mention that I myself am Black. I am a Black woman who is descended from ancestors who were enslaved, both sides of my family. And the inheritance of my ancestors is joy, strength, love, as well as their grief, pain, and trauma. And it's something that I hold with tenderness and reverence. So, in addition to doing coaching and consulting, I'm a group fitness instructor. I say that body combat is the love of my life. I love teaching body combat and body pump. So that's kind of a little something that I do only 4 hours a week, but is so meaningful to me. Now, on the Enneagram, my core type is 8. I spent a few years thinking I was a type 2, and every test that I took during that time typed me as 1, with 8 kind of like in the top 3 for me. And it was really a journey of deep introspection and like self-reflection that helped me realize, like, oh, much of my sense of self had been shaped at that point by trying to be the ideal Christian woman, which at the time was probably best characterized as the type 2. The overgiving, doesn't think about self, you know, Proverbs 31 woman who can do all the things, but like is like humble of heart and like defers of herself. I'm not saying it's the good parts of the type 2, but I'm saying I spent a lot of years trying to avoid my bigness, my fierceness, my directness. Yeah. And so it took me 2 years-ish to get there. It took a lot of podcasts. It took actually hearing women talk about being an Enneagram 8. And hearing women talk about being an Enneagram 8 helped me actually give language to the fact that every time that I had read about the Enneagram 8, it sounded like a white male. I couldn't get past many of the descriptions of what the type looks like, where everything very much sounded like a white man who has power. If I did so many of those behaviors that different teachers talked about, I probably wouldn't have a job. I would be unhireable, and probably would be rejected a lot in society. And so 2 is easier. 2 is easier. I have these big emotions, but I shouldn't be too big, can't be too big. My personality can't be too overwhelming. My laugh can't be too loud. My clothes can't be too bright. Again, 2 was kind of this easy thing for me to say, oh yeah, I feel some of that. And dealing with codependency and an anxious attachment style, super easy for me to land there. But it wasn't me. It was not me. Honestly, when I found the type 8, everything seemed to click. Everything just seemed to make sense about me. The ways that I was called abrupt. I have a very distinct memory of being called abrupt because I told someone a friend that they should take me to the mall because I wanted to go. And instead of asking, I was just like, why wouldn't you? Like, I just wanted it. So I made the suggestion. I wasn't trying to tell anyone what to do, but yeah. The sometimes lack of awareness about how my energy enters a room and how my energy can actually color and shape the energy of everyone else in the room. There were a lot of things that I was like, oh, 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 okay. that makes sense. Now, how did I find the Enneagram? Way back in 2013, I was leading a professional development retreat day for my staff. I was still in higher ed at the time, working at Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida, which was a very formative time in my life. It shaped so much of who I have become in life. But I was doing a training for people and I wanted to do something fresh and new. We had done things like True Colors and Strengths and the Myers-Briggs and a lot of these kinds of assessments. And I was like, I need something new and something fresh because I was so young. And some of the people that I was supervising were sometimes 2 to 3 times my age. So I was like, I need to come correct and not with disrespect. So I did a Google search. It brought me to a PDF that talked about the Enneagram types. And when I realized that it didn't blow smoke up your, I was like, oh, I love this. Because this isn't just about how I am. This is about underneath all of that, what's going on in the background? Like, what's going on in my inner experience? What are the ways that I protect myself? What are the ways that maybe I have strengths, but also like these are the ways that my, ish stinks and the things that I need to take care of. And to me, it felt like a place we could move forward from. And that felt really powerful to me. My background, as I said, is in higher education. I got my master's degree in 2010 and then worked in higher ed from 2011 after I left being a high school counselor to 2019 when I was just like, I can't do this job in the same way that I used to. So let me create space for someone who is really actually committed to in the way that students are worthy of having that commitment. In March 2020, I launched my business full time. I was kind of dabbling and doing a few things here and there. And then, of course, March 2020 comes and the whole world shuts down, which put a wrench in all of my plans to network and get to know people in my community. And we went online. We went online in a way that I wasn't expecting. And then May 25th hit, and video broke of George Floyd being murdered by an officer who was supposed to serve and protect. And I felt God, spirit, source tell me that I needed to put on a program. I need to put on a program for white people to help them deal with their bias. And when I started my coaching practice, I started it because I believe that when Black women heal, that the world heals. I believe this for several reasons, and maybe I'll just create a whole episode about that. But I wasn't expecting to work with white people specifically around anti-racism at all. I knew that when I talk about the Enneagram, I don't believe you can really talk about the Enneagram without talking about like our identities, because our identities are going to, they're going to say what is acceptable in our expression of that. The way that a Black woman who is an 8 like me, we can't get away with the same things that white male 8s get away with. Our anger is seen as a problem. If you've heard the trope or the stereotype of the angry Black woman, there is a sense that unless I want to be fit into the stereotype, I have to do something else. I can't express my justifiable rage or my anger or even my passion because of how it will be seen. And so I knew that. And I was like doing a lot of Enneagram work, typing sessions, seeing clients. And when George Floyd was murdered and I heard this call from God, I couldn't say no. So I launched a program called Disrupt the Narrative. And it was a magical experience. 9 women showed up for 9 months, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was beautiful. And Disrupt the Narrative was about like, how do you use the Enneagram to disrupt your bias? How does the Enneagram type help you, and how does it actually get in the way? And during that program is where I really saw the need for embodiment. I saw, when I was talking to my clients and I was like, can you drop into your body and tell me what your body is saying? I saw this reactivity, and I don't judge any of the people who are part of that group. But I was like, oh, we need to reclaim our bodies. So I started to incorporate that more into my work, which is how we have come to the intersections that we are at right now. When that program ended, and I ran a program for Black women called Free Yourself. When those programs ended, I wanted a community that people could come to. I wanted a community where people of all stages could come together and do our work together without a hierarchy of like this person's farther along, but like we're all humans having a human experience. And so I created Life on Vulnerability, which is a group program. It's a community with a 6-month at the least commitment, though you can stay on as long as you'd like. And we look every month at life through the Enneagram, through anti-racism, and through embodiment for liberation. And so I love that model. I love that people can come and be a part of something that's really special. So much of my work is that. Much of my work is also one-on-one clients, also doing consulting with organizations locally and on a, kind of farther away digitally. So why this podcast? So I was writing a lesson for my communities because I write at least 3 lessons every single month. And I was writing a lesson for my clients, and I was like, why? I would love to riff about this. I'm like, where am I going to riff about it? And I was like, oh, Jessica, you have wanted a space for people to know that they can come, and they can be on the pursuit of liberation. So why not use this as a way to talk about the things that you're sharing, the things that you're teaching, and the things that people are learning? So that is what is up with this podcast. It's why I created it. So welcome to the Antiracist Enneagram podcast. I am so excited that you're here. I'm grateful that you're tuning in. So do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast and tell all your friends to listen in. From love and for liberation. Peace.
I'm not trying to get by.